What's going on, bottom line viewers? It's Mitch here, back with another NFL video, and in this video I'm going to discuss 5 teams that missed last year's NFL playoffs that I believe could make it in 2018. These are 5 teams that for whatever reason didn't make the playoffs last year, whether it be because of injuries, a tough schedule, or maybe it's just because they were 1 year away from football in January. But these are 5 teams that I think could make it in 2018. Let's start off with the most obvious team that could make their way back to the playoffs in 2018, and that's the Green Bay Packers. To me, the Green Bay Packers were just one player and one player only from making the playoffs last year, and that was Aaron Rodgers. Obviously, without Aaron Rodgers, the Green Bay Packers weren't a playoff team in 2017. But with Aaron Rodgers back and hopefully healthy, in 2018, the Green Bay Packers will have one of the best, if not the best, quarterback in the NFL back at the helm. But also, the Green Bay Packers will have a better roster surrounding their star quarterback. The Packers had a ton of picks this draft, and they really went all in on addressing their biggest area of need for the past few seasons. And to me, that's been the secondary. They went in the first and second rounds, and they addressed the corner position. They got Jaire Alexander, and they got Josh Jackson. 2 corners that were looked at as first-round talents, 2 guys that are great with the ball in the air, 2 guys that can make plays on the ball, and 2 guys that can turn the football over for this Green Bay defense. But not only that, but they're great in coverage. Josh Jackson, more of a zone corner. Jaire Alexander, a little bit more of a man corner. But they'll immediately both be impact players for this defense and probably both start come September. Not only did they get impact players in the draft, but they also got a ton of guys that can just add to their depth chart, provide depth on offense and defense. But in free agency, they also found a couple of studs that can help on both sides of the football. On offense, they added a tight end in Jimmy Graham, who we know what he can do when he's healthy and when he's going. Jimmy Graham is one of the best red zone targets in the NFL, and even in his down days in Seattle, he still provided a threat in that red zone to score touchdowns. Then on defense, you have a Muhammad Wilkerson, who maybe came at a cheap price because of his play in New York recently, but we all know what Muhammad Wilkerson can do at the height of his powers. He is a very disruptive interior defensive lineman. So you add a Muhammad Wilkerson to this defense, you add a Jimmy Graham to this offense. Yes, you did lose a guy like Jordy Nelson, but really, how much did he have left in his legs? But when you look at it, it all comes down to number 12. It all comes down to Aaron Rodgers. And the Green Bay Packers, to me, will be back in the 2018 playoffs because they'll have number 12 at quarterback. And the second team that didn't make the playoffs in 2017 that I do believe could make it in 2018 is the LA Chargers. The LA Chargers were just a little bit shy of reaching the playoffs in 2017, but I believe they can put it all together in 2018. When you look at the LA Chargers last season, they started off very poorly. They were 0-4. They weren't looking very good at the beginning of the season, but quite honestly, when you really look at it, they could have won 2 of those games in the first 4 if it weren't for some kicking issues and making simple game-winning and game-tying kicks. But also, you look at an LA Chargers team that down the stretch went 9-3 and were one of the most feared teams that could have possibly made it in the AFC playoffs at that time in late December. The Chargers played a very difficult schedule in 2017. They faced both of the teams that represented each conference in the Super Bowl. They lost to both the Eagles and the Patriots. They also lost to one of the other AFC championship teams by just 3 points in the Jacksonville Jaguars. The LA Chargers were no slouch last year in 2017, but I think in 2018, they're going to have the ammunition at their disposal in order to get into January, in order to get into the playoffs, because they're going to be getting a couple of key players back from injury. Of course, the Chargers always with their injuries, but Jason Verrett, hopefully he's finally back and ready to go to play for the LA Chargers, because when he's been healthy in his young NFL career, he's been one of the best man-to-man corners in the league. The Chargers have one of the best upcoming defenses in the league with a great pass rush and a great secondary to complement that. And if Verrett is on the field along with Casey Hayward, this could be a pairing of two great corners. And then you throw in Forrest Lamp and also Mike Williams from the draft that really didn't get a chance to play last year for the Chargers. So you're really missing your entire draft class of last season. Plus, they drafted a Derwin James in the first round. The Chargers are looking like a team that I think a lot of AFC contenders are going to be just peeking over their shoulder and saying, hey, watch out for the Chargers, because I think the Chargers are going to be a team that can give everybody in the NFL a run for their money, and I believe they'll make it to the playoffs in 2018. The third team that I think missed the playoffs in 2017 but has a chance of making it in 2018 is the Houston Texans. To me, the Houston Texans, it was a story of 2 seasons last year. Really, when you think about it, the Houston Texans, half of it was the season with Deshaun Watson, and half of it was the season without Deshaun Watson. The season with Deshaun Watson, yeah, sure, maybe they were only a wild card team and not really a full-on contender, but they were still exciting and fun to watch, and hey, they probably would have made it into the playoffs last year if Deshaun Watson was fully healthy. The way that he was slinging the rock, throwing touchdowns at a record pace, and throwing touchdowns at DeAndre Hopkins and Will Fuller, and really igniting that offense for the first time in a long time. But also, the Texans, I mean, not only was Deshaun Watson injured, but also you look at J.J. Watt, he was hurt. You look at Whitney Merciless, he was hurt. So 2 of their top 3 defensive players were hurt last year, and those aren't any slouches either. Those are 2 really good players that were injured. This was a defense that, with those players on the field, really minus J.J. Watt, was the best defense in the NFL the season previous in 2016. So if the Texans get anywhere close to a top 10 defense, along with a decently healthy Deshaun Watson, who will be a major upgrade over whoever played for them when he was injured, the Texans could be a dangerous AFC team that could score points, but also has the capability of shutting you down. Along with their additions in free agency and the draft, I think the Texans are looking like a young up-and-coming team in the AFC. The San Francisco 49ers are a team that are built the proper way. They're built with the young head coach that's the mastermind of the offensive football, and a young quarterback that they got traded to them from the New England Patriots, Jimmy Garoppolo, or whatever nickname you're calling him nowadays. Gucci Garop, Jimmy G, Jimmy GQ, whatever you're calling him, Jimmy Garoppolo and Kyle Shanahan, that combination throughout last year's season, when Jimmy made his way onto the 49ers, were 5-0. The 49ers were a force to be reckoned with at the end of the season last year after starting off absolutely awful and terribly and looking like they were going to be one of the top picks in the NFL draft. But as soon as they got a quarterback, and as soon as Kyle Shanahan got his hands on a talented quarterback that could run his system, the 49ers looked like the future of the NFC. And yes, I still think the 49ers are a few pieces away from really being a true contender in the NFC. But when you look at the 49ers, they do definitely have the capability of making the playoffs in 2018. You look at their offense, and it's already improved from last season. They added Mike McGlinchey in the draft, which I think was more about a future pick than really anything, but he'll come in there and he'll start at right tackle. He's also a guy, more so than Trent Brown, that will work in the system of what the 49ers like to do in terms of their offense. And you have still Joe Staley on that offensive line, a solid line, good enough to protect Jimmy G. You add a Jerick McKinnon in the backfield who's a little bit more explosive and can do a little bit more in terms of the passing game than a Carlos Hyde. The wide receiver position, you get Pierre Garçon back, who with Brian Hoyer was already pretty good. Imagine what he'll do with Jimmy Garoppolo in the Kyle Shanahan offense. You have Goodwin, who really came into his own last season as a down-the-field, stretch-the-field type of receiver. They added another receiver in Pettis in the draft. So you have some pretty good weapons there. And on offense, I think basically Kyle Shanahan will take those pieces and do whatever he wants with them. He's the master of getting people open. So the offense is going to be fine. And then you go to the defense where, sure, they didn't add a ton of talent, but overall, you look at just adding a guy like Richard Sherman, which could do so much for this team in general. He could be that leader that this team really needs on the defensive side of the ball, be that leader in the locker room, be the smart guy that's been there before. And I think the 49ers could just, with a dominant offense, with an offense that I think will move the ball really effectively, and a good enough defense with a little bit improvement, could be a team that could make their way up the NFC West and challenge the Rams for the division, and also challenge for a wild card spot in this NFC. So I'm looking forward to see what the 49ers do, and I think they're a team that missed the playoffs last year that could potentially make it based off a strong finish to the 2017 season and all the additions that they've made going into year 2 of the Lynch and Shanahan system. Then we go to the last team, which is personally probably my favorite of this list because I think they're the most intriguing and the team that could go either way the most. You look at the Chicago Bears, and the Chicago Bears could be one of two teams this year. They could be a team that's maybe not quite ready. They could be a team with a ton of talent that really just doesn't make their way in a tough NFC, a tough conference, and maybe Mitchell Trubisky isn't ready yet. Maybe their offensive weapons don't quite mesh. Maybe their coach, Nagy, isn't quite the guy we expected. Or they could go the other way in the way that I actually suspect them to go, in the way of challenging for an NFC playoff spot. When you look at the Chicago Bears, they're one of the more complete rosters in the entire NFL. There's just a lot of questions regarding that roster on paper as to whether they're actually going to be able to put this all together. You look at their offense and they already have a solid running game that's with or without John Fox or Nagy being at the helm as head coach. You have Howard, you have Cohen. That's already a dangerous combination. Plus, you really imagine what Tariq Cohen can do in this Nagy offense where they'll be able to get the ball in his hands in a lot more creative ways. You look at the receiver position, that was a huge, just terrible position and just a huge deficiency on this team last season. And you add an Allen Robinson. You add a Gabriel to this position. You add Trey Burton to the tight end position. So the Chicago Bears just threw money at some of these free agents, and they plopped in some really talented players at these skill positions to put players and put pieces around their young quarterback. And speaking of Mitchell Trubisky to me has all the qualities of being a star quarterback in the NFL. Now, I'm not saying in year number 2 he's going to make that jump to being a Pro Bowl quarterback, but I do think that he has the arm talent, he has the athleticism, and he has the pedigree to be a good quarterback in the NFL. You throw in a system, in Matt Nagy's system, where I really believe this system was tailor-made for a guy like Mitchell Trubisky to utilize his legs and his arm. Mitchell Trubisky should make that next step this season. So the Chicago Bears, they're set up on offense. They got all the talent, and as long as Trubisky puts it together, they should have a pretty good offense. Then you look at their defense, which is already a good unit last year. People were sleeping on this Bears defense last year, and they have one of the best under-the-radar defensive coordinators and defensive minds in football. You put that with some talent on this team, specifically in the secondary. You look at a Fuller at corner, who they just paid, an Adrian Amos, who's everybody's sleeping on. Eddie Jackson at the other safety position is very good as well. Both young players, all three of them young players. Those guys are good. And then you have some depth at the corner position with Amukamara and Callahan. And the linebacker position is very, very interesting. You look at that position and you got a Roquan Smith, who a lot of people suspect could be the rookie of the year this year. Defensively, offensively, doesn't matter. A lot of people even said he could be the best player from this draft class. So that was one of their biggest weaknesses. They add a Roquan Smith next to a Danny Trevathan. That could be a dangerous combination in the middle of their defense. I really like a guy like Leonard Floyd off the edge. Akeem Hicks is a very good player up front. So this Bears defense could be a sneaky unit on that side of the ball, coupled with an offense that should be very, very much improved. and already a good home field advantage. The Chicago Bears should be a team that will give every team fits because of their versatility and because of their talent on their roster. I'm really looking forward to see what the Chicago Bears can do this season, and I'm looking forward to see if they can make that jump to the playoffs. Now, I'm not necessarily saying that these 5 teams will make the playoffs, but I'm saying they definitely have a good chance of making it next year when they missed it last year. So those are the 5 teams that missed the playoffs last year that I think could make it in 2018. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, hit the like button and subscribe for more football, NFL on the Bottom Line View. Thanks for watching. It's Mitch of the Bottom Line View once again, and peace out.